The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration will no longer track the cost of climate change-fueled weather disasters, including floods, heat waves, and wildfires. NOAA says that its National Centers for Environmental Information will no longer update its billion-dollar weather and climate disasters database beyond 2024. Scientists say that these weather events are becoming increasingly more frequent, costly, and severe, wreaking havoc on the insurance industry and homeowners who are at risk of skyrocketing rates. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A Texas man associated with a neo-Nazi group convicted of posting threats to kill Nashville District Attorney General Glenn Funk. 60-year-old David Aaron Bloyd of Frost, Texas, found guilty by a federal jury in Nashville. More on these stories at townhall.com. I'm John Scott.
The following is an America Matters Media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Vote for me and I'll set you free.
Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Come together right now over me.
All right, folks, you certainly know what that theme song means by now. That's right. It's time for another episode of America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zacky, with Eddie Floyd and Shannon Lawson. It is Friday, May 9th, and it's 12:05 p.m. So we got a lot to talk about, but before we do, we're going to talk a little bit about saying thank you to everybody for tuning in. I appreciate that. I want to thank all of you there on 93.7 KPGF as well as AM 1060 for tuning in. And also everybody tuned in on Radio for America, the Salem Network, the Answer Network, the Kevin Jackson Network, AUN Television, and everybody out there who makes this show possible. We really appreciate the opportunity to be on the air and spread this message. And we're very grateful for all the listeners out there. Don't forget, if you want to watch the show, see my ugly mug or Eddie's handsome face, you can always go to Facebook at America Matters Media's Facebook page or the America Matters Media LinkedIn page, or you can go on YouTube or Rumble at Zacky Radio and check it out there. So, without further ado, Eddie, what's going on, brother?
Well, I tell you, I've broken them out in some segments that I really didn't understand. I started breaking news out, and I said, I'm going to ask Leo to respond to some of these segments that I put together for today's show, Leo. And I'll start with asylum to British citizens, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, if you hadn't heard, during a White House press briefing recently, a reporter posed a question to the press secretary regarding the possibility of the Trump administration offering a political asylum to British citizens facing legal repercussions for their online activities. So if you haven't heard about what's going on over there, well, they're basically infringing on freedom of speech. And, well, they don't really have it over there, so I guess they're not being infringed on. But they're literally arresting people for making posts on social media, which is quite crazy. So take a listen to this exchange. I got the clip right here. Play the clip.
In Britain, we have had over a quarter of a million people issued non-crime hate incidents. As we speak, there are people in prison for quite literally reposting memes. We have extensive prison sentences and for tweets, social media posts, and general free speech issues. Would the Trump administration consider political asylum for British citizens in such a situation?
Well, to your latter question, it's a very good one. I have not heard that proposed to the president, nor have I spoken to him about that idea, but I certainly can and talk to our national security team and see if it's something the administration would entertain. To your first question about free speech in the United Kingdom, the vice president has been incredibly outspoken about this for good reason. And the president has spoken about this as well directly with your prime minister when he was here for a visit to the White House. So it remains a critical endeavor of ours to show the Brits and your country, which we love and admire, about the First Amendment and the importance of free speech in a sovereign nation.
Isn't that wild? Wow. We got Joshua Matriciana joining us too as well. Glad to have him with us. But as highlighted in that briefing, the administration has not formalized any policy on the matter. But there is some concern regarding the state of free speech in the UK, which
Right.
they don't formally have it, but they're also informally being, well, persecuted for, I mean, very basic stuff, as you heard. So to understand the gravity of the situation, let's take a look at some real cases. Josh, you know about a few of those, don't you?
Yeah, we've got a few people that actually, have been suffering because of what they've been posting on Facebook. For example, Jordan Parler, 28 years old, sentenced to 20 months for a Facebook post inciting violence against asylum housing. Now, was it really inciting violence? And is that a criminal offense in the United States? The answer is absolutely not. But in the UK, it's a little bit of a different story.
Right. And then you got Tyler Kay, a 26-year-old from Northampton, and he received a 38-month sentence. So that's 3 years and 2 months for those who don't know, for a social media post that, quote unquote, encouraged setting fire to hotels accommodating asylum seekers. And the court noted that his post revealed a fundamentally racist mindset. So, I mean,
that's an interesting thing to put in court documents. Like, they're now critiquing their mindset. Like, is it illegal to be racist? Is it a criminal offense to be racist?
not in this country.
No, not in this country.
I mean, it's a dick thing to be, but it's definitely not illegal. But then you got someone like Julie Sweeney, a 53-year-old woman, jailed for 15 months after posting on Facebook that a mosque should be blown up, and her comments were deemed to incite racial hatred.
Whoa.
So, and then you had Lucy Connolly, a childminder and wife of a conservative counselor, and she was sentenced to 31 months in prison for a social media post calling for hotels and housing asylum seekers to all be set alight. And notably, the platform Twitter, or X, whatever, stated that her post did not violate the rules. But these cases underscore that the UK's stringent approach to online speech, particularly when it's perceived to incite hatred or violence when the intention is to maintain public order and protect communities, while critics argue that such measures may infringe upon individual freedoms and set concerning precedents for digital expression. So as the debate continues, it's essential to continue the balance between safeguarding society and upholding the fundamental right to free speech. So,
Wow.
it's pretty concerning what's going on over there. I mean,
Amen.
I think that last one in there was definitely targeted because of, well, her relationship with the council member, who's conservative, of course.
I'm not saying we endorse any of these comments, but prison for speech, like when social media companies say it isn't even a violation of their terms. I mean, the UK is turning into a digital surveillance state where your thoughts can get you locked up.
I mean, Big Brother. I mean,
what happened to Liberty?
Oh, they've never really had it. They got Big Brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like they have their own Patriot Act.
I mean, well, it's worse because they don't have a constitution that gives them these inalienable rights.
Right.
That's what doesn't really protect them. They have like sort of loose protections from the Magna Carta, but that's really all they have, unfortunately. But it also poses the question here, if we're so concerned about what's being said on, online like that, and we are so upstanding for free speech here in this country, then why is it being made such an important point to pass anti-Semitism laws? Because I think it's a slippery slope. Not that I think it's good to be an anti-Semite. I'm not advocating for that at all, but I'm saying it sets a precedent, right? Because if free speech is absolute, then how can you then put restrictions and limitations on speech? Just some food for thought. But we do have to take our first break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd, Shannon Lawson, and Joshua Matriciana. We'll be right back.
Talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, I remember you in the old days, Park Lane Mall, a kiosk. It's a lot different now, isn't it?
Man, that was a long time ago. 1988, we've been blessed that we've been guided, and finally we have bought an amazing building across the street from the convention center. We found a better way to serve you. We call it home. We managed to create amazing energy. And when we say welcome to the family, boy, we really mean it.
It is a family affair.
Absolutely. And we couldn't have done it without our wonderful customers who believed in us for all of 27 years. So I'm here to really say thanks to all of our wonderful family members who we started as customers, who now we know each other's children's and grandchildren.
All those years ago, a little kiosk in Park Lane Mall. Park Lane Mall's not there anymore, but you are still here.
Yeah, we have solidified our future by buying this beautiful building on Virginia Street. So we're there to serve you.
Thank you, Victor. Precision Diamonds, your local jeweler across from the convention center.
At A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, we've been accomplishing happy feet for over 30 years.
We offer a various range of shoe styles and sizes for both men and women. From all-season shoes and orthotics to work boots and safety shoes, our professional and reliable staff possesses the knowledge to help you find the proper shoes to fit your needs. Hard to fit? Hard to find?
A Proper Fit Footwear is here to give our customers happy feet. We make people aware of potential foot problems as we're sizing their feet, suggesting the right arch support, and guiding them to the proper shoes for their needs.
Stop by A Proper Fit Footwear at 4001 South Virginia Street in the Reno Town Mall today, and allow the owner Mike Jones and our fabulous staff to find the perfect pair of shoes tailored to your specific needs.
A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, the home of happy feet, where comfort and your feet meet.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Shannon Lawson. We got Joshua Matriciana back with us today. I love having him roll with us. He's a lot of fun. He's a wealth of knowledge too. But I wanted to, move on to talking about Germany's Network Enforcement Act that's been going on out there. These Europeans really don't understand this whole freedom thing. We might have to go back over there at some point and remind them what freedom's all about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Germany has taken aggressive action to stamp out hate speech online. And in fact, they've been passing a bunch of laws there. And one of the most notable ones is the Network Enforcement Act, or the NetzDG. And so under this law, companies like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok must take down illegal content, including hate speech and defamation, within 24 hours of being notified. And failure to comply could cause them to be fined up to $56.5 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, well, good luck. So Germany's effort to fight hate, quote unquote, has opened the door for a dangerous new level of censorship. And I have to agree. I mean, it's very difficult, one, to police the internet, and two, you're just going to lock everybody up for having opinions. I mean, even if they're not nice. I mean, who's setting the tone for what can and can't be said? Should we just all have like empty platitudes of small talk that nobody really cares about, and that's just how we should meander through life that way? Or should we have hard discussions that, because then again, who gets to label what is hateful and what's not hateful? What if someone's like, man, I really don't like peanuts, and someone else could be like, oh my God, like, I love peanuts. How can you say that? Like what's wrong with you? Like that makes me feel so terrible. I feel disenfranchised. And then what, they go run and scream to the cops, and then, but and then that person who says, I really don't like peanuts, gets thrown in jail. I mean, that's the kind of slippery slope that we're on. I mean, it's a rough analogy, obviously, but
right. Just to clarify, you were saying peanuts, like what goes into peanut butter and jelly.
Right. Peanuts.
Right. Okay. I didn't mishear that. I was just making sure. Okay.
Yeah. No. Let's not get twisted, but go on.
Yeah. Well, here's the key point here. Quote unquote anti-hate laws. It's turning into digital dictatorship, and that dictatorship is crossing political boundaries. When Germany can say, "Oh, we don't allow this. We're gonna fine this American company or other company X amount of millions of dollars because you don't, have," that forces what China has been doing, which they call the Great Firewall of China, where if you want to have China's market, you have to follow their censorship guidelines. So is this really a push for free speech, or is it a push for forcing corporations to say, oh, South Korea is allowed to see these results, but oh, you know what? Actually, Russia or Germany or whatever, they're only allowed to see these search results.
Right.
So, I mean, it opens a Pandora's box. Again, this whole idea of digital dictatorship, where eventually, and this is where, kind of like my biblical leaning comes from. It's like eventually, in Revelation, it talks about this one world government that everybody would be following the same rules. It seems like incrementally we're starting to go there. And Germany right now is talking about that with, these laws.
Right. And so under the German law here, public insults, defamation, incitement to hatred are all criminal offenses. And then it also begs the question, like, what can be defined as incitement to hatred? That's a very loose term.
Right.
So even, satirical or, critical online posts have led to police arrests and seizures of private devices. Like, for example, a 64-year-old man was raided by police for allegedly using Germany's vice chancellor on social media and had his devices confiscated, his home searched, and for a few online words. That's what it was all about. That's what it came down to. So this raises some deeply troubling questions. Where do we draw the line, and how do you punish? And why would you? I mean, and where do you? I just don't. I don't think you should. Like, personally, free speech, absolute, all the way. All right, internet's the Wild West. I don't know how you're going to tame that. I don't think you can. I don't think it's worth trying to tame it. I mean, you can have blocks, for porn and other things like that, like on the device, like, for children, you can have like age proofing stuff. But if you find a way around it, I mean, these devices, they're tools. Like, what are you going to do about it? Like, you can use a bandsaw to to cut wood and build a house. You can also use it to probably, cut up people. Not saying that you should do that, but that's the thing. It's a tool. Like, you can drive a nail with a hammer, or you can bash somebody's skull in. Like, I mean, what are you going to do? Get rid of all the hammers? Like, I don't understand.
Well, you bring up a really good point here, because first of all, everything that we are using right now, they are tools, and all tools can be used for good, for construction, or for evil, for just destroying, whether it's people or livelihoods or whatever. You can use social media to dox people, to tell them, hey, go kill this person. They live at this, address, which is, there's laws against that. But the fundamental thing is, you have to have a framework of rights that needs to be in the United States. This is where we love our Constitution and we love the amendments, because this outlines, specific rights that was given to us by God, and the, things like these shall not be infringed. Whereas the rest of the world is trying to catch up, and whatever weird ideology that they have, whatever country is out there saying, oh, you can or can't do this. I think the big point here is that they're able to fine millions and millions of dollars to these companies. It's like, that sounds like a great tax. I need money, so why don't we fine this company for doing something that isn't illegal in the company in the country that company's from?
Right. And it's like a money grab, and I totally get that concept, and it's extortion, and it's a means of control. I totally see that, how that can play out. That, I mean, because look how awful that all these every government around the world is like so abysmal when it comes to managing money, like unbelievably so. Like, the only ones that are actually good at it, they're only good at it because they have like a wealth of oil and they pay their citizens out. And even then, I guarantee you, they're probably not giving them as much as they probably could.
Well,
so I don't know about it. It's just, this is really the big question of our time. How are we going to react really to the infringement of free speech everywhere? I mean, yes, other countries, they're other countries. They have their own rules. They have their own laws. Like, you go to a place like Dubai, you steal, they're going to cut your hands off. You steal here in America, depending on how much you steal is how bad your consequence is, but they're not going to cut your hands off. So, each country has their own rights to do things to a certain degree, but how do you how do you have jurisdiction and a way to penalize or do anything to a company that's multinational on the internet? I mean, aside from like banning it in your respective country, because countries do have the power to do things like that, but at the same time, people can get around it with VPNs.
You bring up some really good points, and there are solutions that have been incorporated out here. I think that you're a country like Germany, for example, and you decide, hey, we will criminalize you for posting a meme that's against our chancellor. Okay, whatever. All right, they're allowed to do that. They're their own country. Us in America, we can say, hey, I don't agree with that, but I don't live in Germany. Now, what they're doing is they're outsourcing their rules to America. Now they're saying, okay, well, this company, Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you have to pay us money because these are our laws. Whereas you get another example, which you have, for example, China, where they automatically filter everything that's coming in. So if it's coming in on Facebook on China, you're missing a lot of that information because the government decides to take a heavy-handed approach and just say, okay, it says this word, flag, not going to see it. And that, I think, in this situation, first of all, would hopefully alert the constituents of that country or the population of that country of, hey, our government is pretty heavy-handed on this thing. We don't like that. It's their battle, and they're not bringing it to our shores.
Right, and it's also up to them as a people of that nation to stand up and push back against it, kind of like how our forefathers did, 249 years ago.
Right.
You want the freedom, you gotta put your life on the line for it, so to speak. I mean, I don't want to give the globalists any ideas, but I'm sure they've already thought of this. But I can just see that they would essentially ban all these different social medias around the world. All the ones that are international, and then you would probably just see social media platforms develop that are specifically for individual countries. And then the only way you would ever see mergers or collaborations would be between countries that had similar or were completely congruent in the laws that they have for online speech. I mean, I think that's really the only way that they could, supposedly police that, right?
Yeah, you're talking about creating essentially echo chambers. So if you like this thing, then you go here. If you like this thing, then you go here.
But it's exactly, but dictated by government.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? That could be a solution. The one thing that fights that though is sheer populace. You've got 100 million users on anything. Guess what? You carry a lot of sway, even to a government. They still want Twitter because Twitter brings a lot of interaction. But they're saying, whoa, we want this, but we're going to modify it. And then you have to pay if you want Germans to be on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah, that would be the other counter argument, because there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? So, yeah, I could see that as a possibility. It's interesting. I personally hate the infringement of free speech. Yeah. Right, wrong, indifferent, racist, hateful, uplifting or not, free speech is free speech, period.
Right.
Look, you put out garbage into the world, you're going to attract garbage. It's that simple. So,
right. The question is posed, how much freedom are the Germans willing to sacrifice to feel safe online?
Well, they've certainly been beaten down. They've been beating themselves down, and the world's been shaming them for 80 years. So, Who knows? They seem like their spirits are pretty broken, not going to lie. So I encourage countries to rise up and take freedom and create their own constitution that encourages free speech and freedom of the press and the Second Amendment. And just copy paste our original 10 and you'll be all right. So
amen to
that. But you guys got to fight for it yourselves. So, we can kind of state sponsor it, but I don't know if our government necessarily wants to do that because we have bad actors that are tied to globalists, but that's a whole separate section of discussion. So anyways, we got to take our bottom of the hour break here on Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd, Channel Austin, and Josh Luciana. We'll be right back.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work. Sorry, I'm late. Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi. Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I used to love going for long walks, but my back just doesn't cooperate like it used to.
Same here. But ever since I started a routine with Active Life Integrated Health on Moana Lane, I feel more flexible and in control. You should check them out.
This is Dr. Tom Waldorf. Let's make it happen so you can feel better naturally. To schedule the beginning of your transformation, call 775-842-0065 or visit activelifereno.com online.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Barbecue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Barbecue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Barbecue Reno.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd, Shannon Lawson, and Joshua Matriciana, the brilliant mind. And, we've been discussing free speech. We've been discussing, giving asylum to British citizens possibly, but I kind of wanted to move on and start talking about fun things like guns.
Guns, fun. Matter of fact, you got a text from Scott in Salt Lake City, Utah, said the whole time you talked during that segment, January 6th kept coming to mind. Okay? And he made a good point, I think.
100%. No, sorry. So I know we wanted to talk. There's a new subject here.
Yeah.
So
the Glock ban.
The Glock
Leo.
ban. These. One of these. This is my Glock. I love my Glock. They want to ban it. So starting July 1st, 2026, this bill would require all sales, transfers of firearms and barrels in California to happen in person through a licensed firearm dealer, complete with background checks and detailed record keeping. And violators could face up to a year in jail and a $10,000 fine.
Wow.
So the supporters for this bill, which I am clearly not, say this is about closing the ghost gun loophole, making it harder for people to assemble untraceable firearms using parts bought online. But it's overkill. And that lawful gun owners who just need replacement parts will face unnecessary red tape, and that online barrel sales will effectively disappear. So next up, you got Assembly Bill 1187, and this one's set to roll out on July 1st, 2027, infringing on the the Second Amendment, slowly chipping away.
Yep.
So they've pushed this one out to July 1st of 2027. So, you'll forget about it by then because it'll be old news until, too late. And it would require an 8-hour firearm safety course. Give me a break. Including live fire training before you can get, a California firearm safety certificate, the FSC, which is 30 questions and it's pretty friggin' basic. And so that applies to first-time buyers, or people receiving guns as gift, and even new residents bringing firearms into California. So just in case, you didn't know how to use a gun because you owned them before you came here, which I don't think too many people are moving here right now. You're going to have to prove it to the state with all these extra nonsense. I wish they would take this level of scrutiny for a driver's license. I'm telling you, way more people are dying in traffic accidents than firearm incidents. In fact, just the other night, I was playing hockey down in Westminster, and it's called the Ice Realm. And during the game, a truck got into an accident with a motorcyclist, and it was a fatal accident. And the truck like rolled over, spilled all the gravel, shutting down 3 lanes. And it was like right there. Like, so we came out into the parking lot after we're just like, we see all these cop cars, the freeway shut down and all that. And you see this mangled ass motorcycle and like the helmet right there. And the truck's all like the cab's all dented and everything. So that's why I'm saying that they should take more stringent approaches to the DMV and driver's licenses here in California than they are with firearms. It's so crazy to me. So, and it's really, really basic, but I mean, should people learn how to use a gun and practice shooting? Of course, but does it need to be sanctioned by the government? I don't know.
Look, that's a great point that you bring up. I grew up on a ranch. I've said this before. We had a shooting range on our ranch. Recently found some old videos from the 80s where we just have a whole bunch of people hop in the back of a truck with all of them holding their little rifles, and we go to our little shooting range. And one thing that my dad taught me was that anytime you hand a firearm to another person, for shooting, hunting, whatever, you go through and you give them the 2-minute safety. Never point a gun at someone. Always act as if the gun is loaded.
Always. And you always, anytime you hand a firearm to somebody, you always inspect it. Inspect it. Check and make sure that there's nothing in battery. Always. Even if there's no magazine, you always got to do basic things like that. Very simple. Always point it up. I mean, if you're outside, up is safe. If you're inside a building, safe could be a whole bunch of different directions, but never at somebody.
Right. The point is that took that whole course on basic safety took about 2 minutes, not 8 hours.
Right. Like, I remember I had to take a traffic school course one time because I wanted to get some tickets expunged way back in the day. Like, I was a teenager. It was 8 hours. Trust me, I didn't learn a damn thing in it. I mean, obviously I knew what I did speeding. So, but I mean, you don't need an 8-hour course to figure this out. And if you actually do need an 8-hour course, you probably shouldn't be in the market for a gun. But that's my take on it. So
I mean, when it comes back to the driver's ed thing, I remember having to watch Red Asphalt.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I literally said that when I came out of the ice rink when we saw that accident. It's tragic. The motorcyclist did die. That is definitely sad. But I was like, oh man, Red Asphalt for sure when we saw the motorcycle. So yeah, another big bill that they're trying to push here is AB 1127, aiming to ban the sale of semi-automatic pistols that can be easily converted into fully automatic weapons. Sometimes they call them machine gun convertible pistols. This is more ATF BS jargon with targeted, which is going after devices which they call the Glock switch, which goes on the back of it. Goes here, like you basically take the slide off. I'm not going to tell you how you do it, but there's a little piece that you can get, and essentially it allows the firearm to become fully automatic. They're also very dangerous because they're not like a proper Glock feature. Somebody has figured out how to make this adjustment, and because you can buy proper Glocks like an 18C, for example, that have a select fire mode on them, but these quote unquote Glock switches, they go on the back, and they themselves are actually classified as machine guns already by the ATF. So this is just trying to make it harder for people to buy things that they want. And the funniest thing about all of this is that these Glock quote unquote switches, they work on Glocks that are allowed to be sold in California. California has this really stupid rule where you can't buy the Gen 4 or the Gen 5 Glocks. You can only buy up to Gen 3. Well, guess what? These Glock switches don't work on Gen 4s and Gen 5s, but they work on the ones up to Gen 3. This is how stupid the state is. This is a Gen 3 right here that I'm holding, because this is what I can legally have here in California, and it's not fun. I mean, it's not that it's not fun. I love this thing. I really enjoy this handgun. It's very fun. It's very cool. I mean, there's other ones that I really like too, but I will say this. I want to have a Gen 4. I want to have a Gen 5. Why can't I have those things? Arbitrary rules that California passes. It's not cool that they make it so difficult for us to have. So
this thing, criminals don't care. They don't read the gun bills, right? Law-abiding citizens do, and they're the ones that are ultimately being punished and restricted. Like, that's what same conversation we hear this over and over and over. Criminals don't care if it's legal or if it's legal.
Right. And that's the biggest, just slap in the face to everybody, is that they keep passing laws that impact the good people, and they don't do anything to stop the bad people. If you want to stop the bad people, stop the bad people. And let all the other good people be able to protect themselves from those bad people. Because if you limit the ability for people to have firearms, well, the only people that are going to become the ones that have them are the bad ones. And if they know, it's like wolves and sheep, right? If you have all the good citizens that can't have, or that are limited on their gun rights and aren't able to protect themselves, but you have the wolves that can have whatever they want with all their sharp teeth, well, they're going to take advantage of those sheep, those simple little sheeple.
Well, it comes down to another singular concept. The people with the guns are the ones who enforce the rules. So if you have a bigger gun than the person next to you, guess what? You can tell them what to do. Just like being a large martial artist, if you're 6'6" and know all the martial arts, guess what? No one's going to mess with you. Well,
or a global superpower with a giant nuclear arsenal.
And what this is doing is continuing to say the population gets to follow the rules, and at no point are you going to be able to stand up against it, even if the government is making laws against our Constitution or making rules that are against our laws.
Mm-hmm. Well, the whole point of the Second Amendment was for us to be able to have the ability to overthrow a tyrannical government, which these other countries, well, they don't really have that one written down. I mean, there are countries you can own weapons in, don't get me wrong, but the whole point of our Second Amendment was simply to be able to have the population be able to arm themselves to go after a government that got out of hand.
Yep.
Kind of how we had this country birth itself.
I mean, which means the population has to be able to have access to the same types of firepower that the government has.
Right. And when you put in these laws that deter people from purchasing them or increase taxes arbitrarily. I mean, right now in California, any sale at a gun store, 11% flat tax on anything that you purchase. Firearm, ammunition, hearing protection, fishing rod, 11% tax on top of it, period. It's ridiculous. So it's all these barriers to entry. This is how they're trying to do it. This is what they're doing. It's the same thing with why they're shutting down the refineries here in California, because they want to make gas so expensive that it gets Californians out of cars, because they hate the fact that Californians are in cars, because they're this global green mindset of nonsense.
Right.
It's the same sort of wackadoodle nonsense. So call your representative if you live in California and tell them no to this stuff. And
Hell no.
Yeah, exactly. And vote for 2A friendly and supporters like me, Leo Zacky, running for governor. So we got to take our last break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd, Joshua Triciana, and Shannon Lawson. We'll be right back.
In times of market volatility, it can be a good reminder to revisit your financial strategies to make sure they align with your goals. Call 775-674-2222 or visit nvretirementplanners.com. Advisory services are offered through Nevada Retirement Planners, an investment advisor in the state of Nevada. Any insurance products and services are offered through Nevada Senior Advisors. Nevada Retirement Planners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. Nevada Retirement Planners does not provide legal or tax advice.
Can you define the 4 different parts of Medicare? Do you have Medicare prescription drug gap coverage? At Nevada Senior Advisors, we will walk through the different parts of Medicare, including Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, Part D prescription drug plans to help you determine which option is right for you. Visit nvsenioradvisors.com, call 775-674-2223 to set up an appointment. Nevada Senior Advisors is not affiliated with or endorsed by the federal Medicare program or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.
Hi, I'm Noreen Leary, CEO of the Veterans Guest House. Guest House is a home away from home for our veterans and their families who travel to Reno for medical care. Our house is more than just a warm bed. It's a place of camaraderie where veterans can find support and long-lasting friends. We serve veterans, men and women, young and old, Navy, Army, Marines, Coast Guard, and Air Force. Wherever they hail from and whatever their circumstance, the Veterans Guest House is ready to support them. The reason we feel so strongly about our mission is that we know that many veterans would forgo their medical treatments because they simply can't afford the accommodations. The Guest House is one of a kind in the country, funded entirely through private donations. Want to know how you can help? There are many ways you can be involved, from volunteering, providing dinners, or supplying items from our wish list. Find out more about the Guest House at www.veteransguesthouse.org. Serving veterans today, tomorrow, and for years to come.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd, Joshua Matriciana, and Shannon Lawson. We're just talking about some of these awful anti-2A bills here in California that they're trying to make life more difficult for us honest citizens, responsible gun owners. And, talking about honest citizens, Mel Gibson, Oscar award-winning actor and director, best known for Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, and Passion of the Christ. Well, he was convicted of a misdemeanor back in 2011 for domestic violence, and, under federal law, that conviction barred him from legally owning a firearm. So you fast forward to this year, the U.S. Justice Department launched a pilot program to restore gun rights to individuals with decades-old convictions. And the idea is to give a second chance to those who, in the government's eyes, no longer pose a threat to public safety. So the initial list had 95 people on it, mostly nonviolent offenders. And, that list was narrowed to 9 after FBI background checks and internal reviews. But Gibson wasn't on that original shortlist. And after senior DOJ officials got involved, his name was added, and Attorney General Pam Bondi approved the final roster. So who else made the cut, right? Pretty interesting concept here. I like it. I think that, after a long, long time, you're deemed not a threat. I think you can have your rights back. It's only fair. Certain people, not everybody, obviously, but among those names was Joseph Klecko, the former New York Jets defensive tackle and Pro Football Hall of Famer, who was convicted in 1993 for lying to a federal grand jury about insurance fraud. Other names include Judy Broach, Danny Preston Conrad, Timothy Lynn Dunham, Jessica Lynn Jacobson, Wayne Mertz, Charles Mooring Jr., Patrick Morgan, and Ronald Wilkham, most with non-violent or financial-related convictions. So Elizabeth Oyer, the Justice Department's pardon attorney, opposed restoring Gibson's gun rights, and she raised concerns about public safety given Gibson's history of domestic violence. And Oyer has since gone public, testifying before Congress that she was pressured to recommend Gibson for restoration because of his personal relationship with President Trump. And when Oyer refused to sign off, she was fired from her post in March of 2025. So the DOJ denies that her firing was related to the Gibson case, but who knows? If she's going to be obstinate like that, she's probably being obstinate and leftist with a whole lot of other things.
Right.
I would imagine. So the department was undertaking a quote-unquote shakeup of multiple senior and mid-level staffers, describing it as an effort to modernize the clemency system, streamline workflows, and improve decision-making transparency. And Oyer's removal was one of several personnel changes that affected not only the office of the pardon attorney, but also other DOJ divisions. Folks, this is about second chances. If you commit a crime, you serve your time, enough time passes, you can prove that you're not a bad person and a detriment to society anymore. I mean, I think second chances are good for some, not for all. Like, I don't think you can save a pedophile. But, if someone, served their sentence and stayed out of trouble and, like I said, demonstrates that they're no longer a bad person, why should their constitutional rights be permanently stripped? Right?
Bring up another good point, Leo. And most of these people who are on that list, they were nonviolent offenders. Like, you get your gun taken away because you are convicted of perjury. I mean, how do you equate those two? So, like, again, it seems to be like a liberty grab and saying any reason, oh, you did this, well, lose your guns. Oh, you did this, well, lose your guns.
Right? Well, I agree. Liberty is being stripped from folks. Don't get me wrong. You commit an offense, like, yeah, that makes sense. But forever, your guns, nonviolent, I don't know about that. So, I mean, every case should be judged on its own merits. And, the DOJ's process did just that. So, blanket bans on gun ownership after conviction, it's a bit broad. It tramples on individual rights. So, a justice system that acknowledges, rehabilitation strengthens the public's faith in fairness and redemption. Right? Don't we all want to have that opportunity? God forbid we're in these situations. God forbid you go and commit a crime, whether it's knowing or unknowing. Right? Wouldn't you like to have a second chance?
That's a big part. That's a big part of it. I mean, look, what if you do the crime, you should do the time, but where does the punishment actually equate to the crime? That's where the lines are obviously, open for interpretation in some cases. But I really think that this goes again to, is there a blanket ban that goes across the entire nation like a federal ban, or should these be handled by the local jurisdictions, particularly the states?
Yeah. Well, some of the states are a little whack.
You know what? Instead of leaving America, you just leave the state. So if you want more freedom, you go to Florida. If you want less freedom, well, you go to New York.
Or California.
Hopefully that won't be the case forever. But
yes. We are 13 months out, just under 13 months out from having a primary election here in California. So if you want to have a shot at freedom, Leo Zacky's your man. If you like tyranny, vote for some other idiot. So
yeah, I think this is the thing. California has the most amount of conservatives just by population than any other state, and yet why do we have all these wacky liberals ruling us? And this is where I think that California has an opportunity. In fact, not just an opportunity, but the obligation to be the state that says, you know what, we're taking our liberties back. We actually want to elect people who are going to who have our best interests in mind, not those people who have been generations in the upper echelon, that ruling class, if you will, of the famous four families that are kind of ruling, with with a golden scepter.
Yeah, and a green woke mindset of riddled with Marxism. We have an opportunity for change.
We need a government in California that is for the people and by the people, and we have an opportunity coming up next year for our votes to, make a difference, and for us to say, hey, we're done with all of this waste, fraud, and abuse. We are tired of these clowns who are running us into the ground and making themselves and their family members
Yeah, they're making themselves rich, real rich. That's all they've been doing. The Pelosi's, the Browns, the Gettys, the Newsoms, they've been in charge of the state for a long, long time.
Too long.
They've got this down to an organized, operation. They know what they're doing. The bullet train to nowhere is finally, at least federal funds have been defunded from it. Good job. Thank you, Donald Trump. But all the ways that they hinder your freedom, waste your money, and raise your taxes and keep you down and impoverished and reducing your liberties at every turn. That's what they're doing. So we have a chance here to fix things in California. And you have an opportunity to fix things where you are, wherever you may be listening, whether it's in Nevada or Germany or who knows, pick a place. Definitely Canada needs some help, and certainly the UK needs a lot of help. You know, it'd be amazing if, you know, quote unquote conservative English people that reside here in America would go back and fix their own country.
That's a funny dig right there. I get it. I know where you're going with that one.
Supposed conservatives.
I mean, well, this is a call, you know, for the people who your views are not the minority. If you believe in liberty, guess what? Even though it sounds like millions of that the odds are stacked against you, there's a very few people with a large microphone. We see it on the mainstream media how these news anchors are saying the same, you know, rehearsed talking points. And yet the majority of the people are looking out the window and saying, oh, the media says the sky is green, but I look up and it looks blue to me. I must be crazy.
This is very dangerous to our democracy.
You know what's dangerous to the quote unquote democracy?
I hate that word. Democracy.
It's individuals with the ability to express free thoughts.
That's what's dangerous. Well, that's what the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds wanted when they funded all these schools. They wanted to curtail the ability for free thinkers. They wanted people just smart enough to work the machines, but dumb enough not to ask any questions about what's going on behind the scenes. You know, Wizard of Oz sort of style.
Right.
That whole concept. But
well, you know, and they've redefined these certain terms. Like they've changed the meaning of what we understand as democracy is that the majority of the people, like loosely translated, the majority of the people get to make the rules.
Mob rule.
Well, I mean, not taking it to that extreme, but essentially, you know, you've got the idea of democracy is it's not top down, it's down up. So the people decide. Yeah. Obviously, you have to couch that, and that's why we have the Constitution. You have to put guardrails and a framework in there. That's why we have elected representatives to say, hey,
right, because we're a constitutional republic.
Right.
That's where that term, representative government.
Exactly. But they've taken that term, democracy, and they've basically set it up like an idol that we worship, and they've redefined it. And really, what they're saying is democracy is actually totalitarianism. That's really what it's coming down to.
Because you always hear people on the left screaming like Donald Trump is destroying our democracy. And it's like, no, he's actually giving you more freedom, more money, more opportunity. And they're like, no, if you just replace if you replace the word democracy anytime you hear the news say it with what was the right word? You replace democracy with bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy. The way, yeah, Elon always says that. Oh, just replace democracy with bureaucracy. That's it.
It's a threat to our bureaucracy. Yes, it is. That's the whole point. Your bureaucracy is killing us. Anyways, we ran out of time. I'm so sorry, folks, but thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Eddie. For one nation under. Had a lot of fun, folks. Thanks for tuning into America Matters, and we will see all of you next week. Have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Go buy your mom some flowers. Tell her you love her. Call her now.